name is Asha Sampatan. Welcome to this new edition of Business Africa, your magazine dedicated to the continent's business and economic news. As usual, you can win $150 in our Business Africa game. More details later, but first, today's top stories. Spotlight on the African Union Silencing the Guns campaign. How to channel the positive energy of the diaspora to bring peace. This is what these associations are trying to achieve. We'll head for the Central African Republic, where hope has reborn among the victims of war.
Here in the CAR, the women make up the majority of the population. And we said to ourselves, if we don't do anything, this country will not rebuild itself. That's the reason behind our fight.
With its new port infrastructure, Djibouti fully intends to take advantage of its geographical location as a gateway to East Africa.
Djibouti is not a major market, but it is the gateway for a vast market made up of a dozen landlocked countries with around 400 million consumers. Our task is to enable them to trade with the rest of the world.
African demand for cereals is growing, and their transformation is becoming a crucial issue on the continent. In Morocco, women's cooperatives have well understood the importance of this topic.
We gave each woman $10, and with the modest resources we had, we started buying the semolina to prepare the couscous. At first, we just sold to our neighbours.
It's officially designated by the African Union as the continent's sixth region. I mean, of course, the diaspora, 140 million people of African descent who have contributed $48 billion in remittances to their countries of origin in 2019. This week, in our Voices for Peace series, we head for the Parisian suburbs to meet Marius Tomandji, co-founder of an association which participates in the reconstruction of the education system in the Central African Republic. So in the next report, we take you to Bangui, where a glimmer of hope shines in the eyes of children and women victims of war.
Here in the CAR, the women make up the majority of the population. And we said to ourselves, if we don't do anything, this country will not rebuild itself. That's the reason behind our fight, especially for women's rights, which are being trampled on.
My father told me that I was just a simple girl and that he was going to save his money for his boys, that I was only a girl and that he had no interest in seeing me succeed. Made more sense to invest in the boys.
The first thing that comes to mind watching that video is a feeling of pride. Pride because Asefka allowed these young women to learn a skill that helps provide for their needs.
On March 24, 2013, the Seleka started the crisis. They are the ones still occupying 14 of the 16 prefectures of the CAR. The anti-Balakas came after. They said they came to defend these groups because the Central African Armed Forces weren't there. Sadly, the anti-Balakas started to behave like the Seleka, and we had no idea what was going on.
The worst memory was that life totally stopped. It was like time had stopped. No school, no shopping, nothing. We had no idea how we were going to survive. Students had lost everything, even me. I failed my high school exam after the fighting because I lost everything and I was traumatized.
Listen, and what happened? It was us women who were, as always, the victims. We lost our husbands and kids. We've been left to fend for ourselves.
It's true that these conflicts have really hurt the country, and nearly each citizen has been impacted one way or another. In education, we chose a school in Bosembele, about 150 kilometers from Bangui. This school was built by the local people, by parents who collect orphan children who have lost their parents in the latest conflict in Central Africa. And last year we gave them tables and benches because these children were sitting on the ground to study. And we said we had to give them a minimum standard of comfort in which to study. When they got those 30 tables and benches, the children sang in Sango, our national language, and in the song they said, "Look at the building we're studying in." Actually, it wasn't what you'd call a proper building. It was simply made of clay and straw. It just needs a little rain, and the building will fall apart.
They're mostly poor girls, and we feel obliged to help them. But despite that, there are some who just aren't able to pay, which means some of them have to give up. They want to participate, but can't without help.
Today, SFCA has started fundraising to help these young women find a system that allows them to fend for themselves. This creates a framework so that at the end of their studies they can find a job.
I want to reach out to my sisters who have slipped into prostitution again, who are waiting for a man to come give them money, to tell them they're as capable of doing as much as a man can. Nothing is over for them. In life, there is always hope.
I think the hand of God is protecting this centre. If not, it would have disappeared a long time ago.
Now that they have taught us to make cakes, to sew and to knit, my prayer is to see good people come to our aid and help mentor us. I want to give for free to others, like the sister gave to us. I am in Bangui without parents. It's thanks to the sister and sewing that I'm making something of my life.
And next week in our Voices for Peace series, we'll head for Togo in the Savannah region, where local chiefs are using mediation to address agro-pastoral conflicts. Meanwhile, further south on the continent, threats are rising around one of the world's largest gas projects in Mozambique. Cabo Delgado's 20 billion liquefied natural gas project is a huge economic hope for all of southern Africa. But it is also the target of endemic jihadist attacks in the province, which have already caused 2,500 deaths and nearly 600,000 displacements in 3 years. In recent weeks, attacks have moved closer to the perimeter of the gas project, leading to the evacuation of around 100 expatriates. While Africa has begun its journey towards the continental free trade area on January 1st, the incredible congestion at the port of Lagos in Nigeria has worsened sharply in recent weeks, and this despite the intervention of the authorities. 500,000 containers piled up, more than 40 vessels immobilized at sea, unable to unload their goods, and ceaseless traffic jams of trucks. A situation that persists due to failing road infrastructure and high financial charges for carriers. We remain in the field of port infrastructure, but this time in Djibouti, where, unlike Lagos, the facilities are expanding rapidly. We saw how the port of Doraleh takes advantage of the privileged geographical position of this small state in the Horn of Africa to attract investors. A great example. Take a look.
It is 7:45 in the morning, south of the city of Djibouti. We are at the Nagad train station. This imposing building is the point of departure for the Djibouti-Addis Ababa line, opened in January 2018. Before the new line, Djiboutians had to make the journey to Ethiopia by bus or by plane if they could afford it. The new 750-kilometer line follows the same route as the former track. China put up 70% of the funding for the $4 billion project, which is destined to become a cornerstone of Djibouti's new logistics network.
Ceci renforce la performance logistique.
It improves logistics and increases competitiveness of the various ports we have invested in. It is also a symbol of regional integration, and of the integration between the two nations.
Most of the traffic between Djibouti and Ethiopia is merchandise, with 4 out of 5 daily trains pulling up to 100 containers each. In the long term, 4 to 5 million tons will be transported by rail each year from the port. The merchandise in these containers is being unloaded at Djibouti's ultra-modern port of Doraleh. This sea of containers is both a symbol of Djibouti's economic growth and of its greatest asset, its exceptional geographic location.
Djibouti sits at the mouth of the Bab el-Mandeb Sur Strait on the Red Sea. It's just 6 hours from one of the world's main shipping lanes, which sees 30,000 vessels each year. That's approximately 90 ships each day.
No less than 60% of international maritime traffic passes here. These figures also tell the story of Ethiopia's thriving economy. Since 1998, the port of Djibouti is a transit point for its neighbors' entire trade, with 1,500 trucks a day, or by rail to Addis Ababa.
Nos deux, si je puis dire, vecteurs de croissance.
Our 2 vectors for growth are Ethiopian growth and the cross-border shipping along our coast.
Qui passe le long de notre côte.
For more than a decade, the Horn of Africa has been developing an ambitious strategy worth an estimated $14 billion to become a vital link in the international logistics chain. One of the master strategists is Abubakar Omar Hadi, president of the Djibouti Ports Authority.
Djibouti is not a major market, but it is the gateway for a vast market made up of a dozen landlocked countries with around 400 million consumers. Our task is to enable them to trade with the rest of the world.
The Port Authority already has an impressive roster, starting with DMT, the Doraleh Multipurpose Terminal, which can receive the world's biggest container ships. The Port Authority also has regional ports specialized in the transport of potash and salt, Air Djibouti Airlines, and the Free Zone. In total, these institutions have an annual turnover of $650 million, and they look set to make far more.
We have diversified our offer and specialized the terminals. In less than 10 years, the government of Djibouti has set up 5 ports, with a 6th under construction. In 2006, we had our first tanker port. In 2009, the DCT container terminal. In 2017, the DMT, and then the ports of Tadjoura and Gubei.
All of these projects are counting on growth in Ethiopia and in landlocked African nations, a well-thought-out bet that is attracting competition from other ports.
Competition is heating up, and we are gearing up as well, so we can satisfy our clients' requirements. We have no other source of wealth. Our wealth is the port area.
The recent reconciliation between Ethiopia and neighboring Eritrea with its vast coastline may jeopardize the Djiboutian port's monopoly. Furthermore, DP World, the Emirates' partner for Djibouti's port development program, has pulled out following a disagreement and is now investing heavily in Somaliland's Berbera port. Authorities in Djibouti say there is no cause for alarm.
C'est des petits ports avec des faibles tirants d'eau.
These are small ports with shallow drafts of around 8 meters. We have a 20-meter draft for all tankers and 18 for the container ships. Our turnaround is also the highest in the region, with 35 containers an hour per crane.
In the space of a few years, Djibouti has become a vital platform on what is known as the new maritime Silk Route between China, Europe, and Africa. The tiny country is pulling off a logistical exploit, a remarkable feat for a territory with no natural resources, apart from being ideally placed geographically to reap the rewards of a four-fold increase in global maritime traffic over the last 20 years.
Welcome back to the second part of our show. When will Africans be vaccinated against COVID-19? The question is starting to generate tension. John Nangasong, director of the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, estimated that it would take until October 2021 to acquire the doses needed to vaccinate 60% of the continent's population. And despite the COVAX initiative to pool vaccine purchases, countries are getting their supplies in scattered order. Impatience is growing in South Africa, where government orders are deemed insufficient and vaccine deliveries arriving too late. Let's now focus on a topic still rather unknown in Africa: CSR, or corporate social responsibility. What is it about? Well, quite simply, if you're a business owner, it is the choice to integrate environmental, social, and governance concerns into the activities of your company. It's much more than charity or philanthropy, as it can improve the profits of a company. To talk about it, I'm joined by Lukman Lanignon, founder and president of the Société Inclusive Association, which advises African leaders in this process. Lukman Lanignon, hello, and thank you for joining us on Business Africa to answer to a few questions. Well, are these CSR policies easy to apply in Africa?
Non. No,
but with adequate support, it can be done easily. Indeed, most African companies are already unknowingly deploying a CSR policy, which is today mainly focused on charity. Indeed, most of these large African companies have charitable support programs, including social works in their countries of establishment.
Therefore, is there some kind of adjustment that needs to be made?
Absolutely, since CSR must take into account local realities, and African companies have realities that are not the same as Western businesses.
Concretely, what are the tips for an African entrepreneur who wishes to have a CSR approach in his company?
The first step in structuring your CSR approach within a company is to carry out an inventory. And from that point on, it's about identifying the priorities and engaging a dialogue with the stakeholders. This approach can allow us to identify the various priority CSR topics for the company. From that moment on, with the help of a consulting firm specializing in CSR, such as ours, the Lanignan firm, that company can carry out its action plan and hence deploy it easily. Subsequently, it's also recommended and wise to conduct an evaluation of this implemented CSR policy.
How expensive is it, and what benefit will it bring to the business?
Indeed, setting up a CSR approach in a company has a cost. But let me tell you that the cost of implementing a CSR strategy is nothing compared to the benefits that a company can reap from it. In fact, deploying a CSR policy within a company contributes to gaining new market shares. Today, most public investment banks include CSR clauses in their calls for projects. So a company that deploys a CSR policy can seize these opportunities. Better still, implementing a CSR policy means questioning yourself about your actions. It also means paying attention to providing a healthy workplace for your employees, which will, at the same time, improve their commitment. Deploying a CSR policy in Africa means positioning yourself as a pioneer in this area, since it's a new theme here. And finally, I would add that it also means improving its brand image as a company and positioning itself as a socially responsible business, attentive to the impact caused by its activities.
Thank you, Lukman Lanignon, for your time.
Merci.
In Africa, and particularly in West Africa, demand for cereals is exploding under the effect of population growth and the development of cities. Each year, the region consumes nearly 65 million tons of grain. Suddenly, grain processing is also a booming sector in Africa. In Morocco, the Milling Industry Training Institute plays a key role in the training of professionals. We met those who followed these trainings in Dakar and here in Gelman in southern Morocco at the heart of women's cooperatives. Take a look.
The women here in the village of Talouine in southern Morocco have decided to take matters into their own hands by joining forces to earn a living. They produce locally made couscous using 5 different types of cereal. The result is much appreciated, but as yet little known.
Each woman has brought a plastic bowl and wooden sieves. We gave each woman $10, and with the modest resources we had, we started buying the semolina to prepare the couscous. At first, we just sold to our neighbours.
But would they have to stop there? The answer came after a meeting with Rachida Doujan, a determined young woman who has made a living producing couscous in Gelmine, the main town in the area.
After making a success of my cooperative, thanks to state funding, I really wanted to share my experience with other cooperatives in the region. Cooperatives from Talouine, Asghari, La Biatidat, all within a range of 150 kilometers and were all very fragile. I managed to persuade them to form a regional association with me so we could all benefit as a single entity from government support. That way we could develop the couscous sector, which actually provides a livelihood for a lot of women in Gelmine.
A year ago, the work being done by the women caught the attention of the Institute for Milling Industry Training in Casablanca. The IFIM, a benchmark for milling on the continent due to its industry standard training for millers, dispatched a consultant to help out. Today, thanks to IFIM, the cooperatives are starting to use drying machines and instruments to measure the humidity level of the cereal. This was essential if the Gelmine women were to reach a wider market. Professional federations were more than willing to help the cooperatives take the final step.
We wanted to help these women escape their cocoon. That meant more development and more marketing to take advantage of the demand for organic artisanal produce. We want to help these women, and we believe there is room on the market for their product. This will help these isolated regions. It will also help the women who live here and who provide a livelihood for their families become financially independent without having to leave their region.
Founded in 1993 by the International Federation of Millers, the Institute for Milling Industry Training is active in several fields. Year after year, the Institute has been steadily establishing itself as the reference for French-speaking training on the continent. Most of the staff at the Grand Moulin in Dakar learnt their trade at IFIM.
Dans l'enseignement, ce qui m'a le plus favorablement impressionné, c'est
What most impressed me about the training was being taught how to use the milling equipment properly and how to maintain it.
et comment faire les extractions.
We also learned how to take samples and achieve optimum yields, which in turn taught me how to control production properly. Our objective is to take the technical aspects of the milling trade and teach them to millers who have been learning their trade as they go on. We have the resources to make sure these workers benefit from professional training. Our goal is to reach as many potential students as possible and invest in a sector that has so much potential in terms of jobs and enterprise creation.
Indeed, innovation plays an increasingly important role in the development of the Institute. Each year, the Institute's laboratory carries out 6,000 analyses for the food processing industry. A school of bakery is being built, and the Institute has just inaugurated a new technical center dedicated to pasta and couscous production. With 20 or more facilities producing 150,000 tons of couscous and 100,000 tons of pasta a year, the kingdom's producers are looking to the continent for new markets to conquer.
It is an important part of our drive to be more competitive and win over new markets that we diversify. We are looking at alternatives to complement couscous production that relies heavily on durum wheat.
The objective is to test new cereal processing techniques using principally African cereals on a small scale before applying them on an industrial scale. Sub-Saharan Africa has fewer than 100 wheat mills and is not yet a major consumer of cereals, but demand is increasing due to demographic changes and changing eating habits. Fully aware that the wind is turning, the IFIM has already started working with cooperatives in the sub-region on new, top-secret preparation methods for pasta and couscous.
Well, it's now time to reward our loyal viewers of Business Africa. It's up to you to answer to the following questions. If you are drawn among those who have given the correct answers, you will win $150. This is game number 542, so listen carefully to the 2 questions that follow, and good luck. First question. What is the main port of the Djiboutian capital? Doraleh, Gubet, Tadjoura. Second question. How many industrial flour mills are there in Morocco? 150, 160 or 200? You know the answers. You can participate now by going to our website africaonair.com. Answer the questions, fill out your form, and good luck. And of course, don't forget to include your contact details, name, address, telephone, email, and the number of the game you are entering with the answers, of course. This game, for example, is game number 542. The winner will receive $150 as our winner this week. Congratulations, you gave the correct answers to our game number 538. Here are the details. First question. What percentage of its energy needs does Morocco import? Answer: 90%. Second question. Who should sign a commercial contract? Answer: both parties. Well, that's it. Business Africa is over for today. I'll see you next week, same time, same channel, for a new edition of Initiative Africa. We'll meet Senegalese professional football player Momar Ndiaye. He will tell us about his international career, but also about his association in Senegal. In the meantime, you can watch this program again on our website africaonair.com, as well as on all our social media channels. Feel free to share, like and comment using the hashtag Business Africa TV show. Take care of yourselves and see you next week. Bye-bye.